Warning, this guide will feature full spoilers for the second trial in the 7.0 expansion for Final Fantasy XIV, Dawntrail. Hi guys, and welcome to a Hector lecture guide to the fight Everkeep Extreme. This is Zoraal Ja. Before the fight begins, you might want to assign light parties to help you with a later mechanic. You will need to assign partners. Make sure you know who you're partnered with and have an order from north to south or top to bottom for these partners. The order is arbitrary, you just need to know who you're partnered with and where you're going. The fight begins with a raid-wide Actualize. Immediately after this, the boss will cast Multi-Directional Divide, and you see some thin, telegraphed line AoEs. Dodge these, and you'll see a floor pattern appears. Let me remove the boss's hitbox for a second to show you this a little bit better. There's some thick lines that are going off towards each intercardinal, and some thin lines branching off of it. The thick lines will give a... You'll notice that this leaves sort of a checkerboard pattern of safe spots in each quadrant. We will need to dodge these at the same time as dealing with either forward half or backward half. The boss will have one of its swords glow, and the cast bar is telling you whether or not the boss is about to jump forward or backward. Do what the cast bar tells you. It says backwards, so go backwards or behind the boss. You're both dodging the floor pattern AoEs, dodging behind the boss out of the hitbox, and also on the non-glowing sword side as the boss will cleave that half of the arena. All three of those will go off at about the same time. Alternatively, the boss could have cast forward half. For this one, you want to go in front of the boss out of its hitbox, and this time you're going to go on the glowing sword side. That's because the boss, when they jump forward, will do a 180-degree turn before they cleave the side. Make sure you're once again in safe spots from the floor pattern. In short, if you cast forward half, go on the glowing sword side, backward half, dodge the glowing sword. There's another multi-directional divide cast afterwards, and have most of the party stay put. Your main tank can go out to make positionals easier if they want. When the cast finishes, you get the floor pattern again. And now have your tanks positioned in front of the party. Regicidal Rage is 2 tank buster tethers. These need to be picked up by both tanks, who then need to take them to a separate quadrant from the group as they cleave in a circle AoE. How you assign which tank goes where is up to you. You can do it either relative, so one tank goes left, one tank goes right facing the boss, or you can do it as fixed positions, one tank west, one tank east. Entirely up to you. Just make sure that both the party and both tanks are dodging the line AoEs while this goes off. Next up is Dawn of an Age. This is a raid-wide that's going to transition the stage to a form you'll recognize from normal mode. 4 copies of the main platform are going to spawn and spread out in each of the intercardinals, and when the boss casts Volok, you're going to get some sword patterns appearing on each of the outer platforms. When the boss casts Sync, at the end of this, some of these swords are going to start to glow, and the way you resolve this is just like in normal mode. Think of them as if they are sliding onto the platform that you're on. You're going to get 2 of these combining together to make a certain set of tiles that will be unsafe. These are the possible patterns that can form as a result, and therefore which squares are going to be unsafe and which squares are going to be safe. Which pattern you get on any particular run, though, is more or less random. The boss will cast Sync. 2 of the platforms are going to start to have their sword tiles glowing. These are the ones that are about to be slid onto the main platform. Look at each of them and figure out a safe spot. Before you commit to any one safe spot, the boss is going to cast half full and raise a sword that's going to be glowing. That whole side of the arena is about to get cleaved, so do not dodge on that side. Find a safe tile on the safe side. You're going to get some telegraphs that are immediately followed by the attacks for both the tiles and the sword cleave. Now, I personally found this quite tricky to be able to resolve, and there is no easy way out of it, but here's one method I've used. First, pick your favorite tile. I've gone for the north tile because it's along the north-south middle line of the sword cleave, and it's also the easiest one to be able to see which side is being cleaved by the glowing sword. I then find the outer tile, and I find the sword that is going to kill me. There's only one of them that is possible to be able to slide on and make the square I'm in right now unsafe. I wait for Sync to go off, and there's a 50% chance that that tile's not going to be glowing, in which case I stay put, and all I have to do is dodge the sword cleave. If I'm unlucky, and I get the 50% where Sync goes, and there it is, the tile I didn't want to be glowing is glowing. I'm currently unsafe. To resolve this, I look at the glowing sword, and I'm going to dodge to an adjacent tile, not on the glowing sword side. If I can, I try to pick the correct one by reading the other tiles on the outside, but if I'm struggling with this, as long as I pick another tile, I give myself a 1 in 3 chance of picking a safe tile here, and overall, a 5 out of 6 chance of not getting hit by anything. However you resolve the sword mechanic, the next mechanic up is Greater Gateway. This is going to spawn a set of portals. We're then going to get Forged Track, and we get 3 swords. This is how they work. If a sword goes into a normal portal, that AoE is going to be transported along the portal, and it's going to make one lane unsafe. If the sword goes through a fire tether, when going through the fire tether, it's going to expand the line AoE so that it covers 3 tiles. Finally, if the sword goes through a wind tether, it's going to create a knockback from the lane that it ends up in, sending anybody flying back. This knockback can be dealt with knockback immunity. If we go back to this pattern here, what we can see is that the wind tile is going to end up going here, so we need to either position to get knocked back from here towards the wide side, the safe side, or pop knockback immunity. And the other 2 swords are going to make these 2 lanes unsafe, leaving us 6 safe squares, assuming we use knockback immunity. Everybody needs to position into one of these squares and either pop knockback immunity or get knockback. And as soon as this resolves, every player is going to get this yellow pyramid above their head. This is a spread marker, but it works in a unique way. You need to be in a separate tile from any other player. If 2 players are in the same tile, when this resolves, they're going to kill each other. Spread to the nearest tile that you can find safe, and the mechanic's done. There's another actualized raid wide, and the stage is going to transition back to how it was at the beginning. Next mechanic is Projection of Triumph. When this finishes casting, you're going to find 16 swords appear in this pattern here. And you're also going to get 2 chains. One of them has point-blank AoEs, the other one has donut AoEs. Which side has which is random. The boss will start casting another Projection of Triumph, and both of the chains are going to start moving. When a symbol hits one of the swords, you'll see it explodes. The point-blank AoEs explode in a small circle, and the donut AoEs explode in a small donut. Projection of Triumph 2 finishes casting, and you get a second chain. These will also be a donut and a point-blank AoE, but they might be on the same side as the symbol that they were matching. They might be on the opposite side. If you want to dodge the donuts, make sure you're inside of a sword. If you're wanting to dodge the point-blank AoE, make sure you're in between them. Dodge the third set, and then immediately after the third hit, the boss will cast either forward or backward half. We're going to dodge this the same way we did at the very beginning, so we need to get behind the boss, not on the glowing sword side, and out of the hitbox. But before dealing with backward half, there's going to be another explosion, so start moving in the correct spot, but deal with the ground AoEs first. Now, before the 5th hit, dodge backward half, and immediately adjust into the incoming AoE. Stay put, and you finish this mechanic. There's another cast of Actualize, and then we get Projection of Turmoil. This is going to give every player a circle around them and a projection debuff that needs to be cleansed. The only way to cleanse it is with this wall that's moving in slowly from the north. You'll notice the stack symbols on it. That's because if any player happens to run into this wall, they trigger an instance of shared damage around them that can be soaked with other players near them. Be aware that when you soak this, every player that's hit gets a 2-second magical vuln, which means that you have to space out hits. If 2 players are stood right next to each other and they both touch the wall at the same time, they will both instantly die, as will anybody else that's near them, as the 2 hits will go off back to back, and the second one will kill them because they'll have the magic vuln on. What this means is simply, we need to soak these and carefully cleanse each of the debuffs, but we need to space them out more than 2 seconds apart for each hit. So here you see now both melees cleansing theirs. You do not have to do this in light parties. Instead, if you want to, you can have everybody as one big group soak this, and do it that way. The advantage of a big group is it minimizes the amount of damage that players are taking, and it makes it a little bit easier for movement, but it's going to mean that it's a little bit slower to cleanse them, as you have to do 8 hits. All in all, you have about 30 seconds from when the wall becomes targetable at the north of the arena to when it's going to go off of the edge of the south arena. How you want to space these out, or how you want to cleanse everybody's debuff, is entirely up to your party. However you resolve it, the next cast is going to be Bitter Whirlwind. This is a tank buster that cleaves. It's going to hit whoever is top in aggro 3 times, and each hit is going to give a magic vuln. You can resolve this by swapping, or I recommend just having the tank soak all 3 hits with an invuln. This mechanic only happens twice in the entire fight, and they're spread out so far from each other that if you have a warrior, they can actually invuln both of them. We get another cast of Dawn of an Age. The stage transitions, but this time we only get 1 mirrored platform. I'm just going to rotate everything to make it a little bit easier to see and explain. Start to line up in your partner's positions, and you want to line up on one of the tiles nearer to the mirrored platform. The boss will cast Drum of Volok, and either all tank healers or all DPS are going to be targeted with this enumeration symbol, meaning you need to be with your partner. Whichever role gets this symbol needs to be closer to the boss, and the other needs to position very carefully next to them. In a second, when this resolves, the DPS who do not have the symbol right now are going to get knocked back relative to the position of their partner. They need to be straight in line with them because what we want to do is aim them towards the other platform. If they're slightly diagonal, they're going to get knocked diagonally and they're going to fall to their death. The tanks and healers who have the enumerations are just going to get popped straight up. Hopefully you get it so that all 4 players land safely, but now different roles are on different platforms. The boss will teleport into the middle, cast Volok, and we get 2 giant swords. The boss will cast Sync, and both swords will start to glow. You'll see that a quadrant on each platform is now unsafe, but in addition, when this resolves, just like before, imagine that these are now going to slide onto the opposite platform. This will mean that each platform is going to have 2 safe quadrants. One of the safe quadrants will always be in melee range. We want to have the entirety of our roll find that quadrant and spread so that each player is on a different tile. We get the yellow pyramid debuffs, and as long as everybody is on their own tile and not on one of the unsafe ones, this resolves fine. Immediately afterwards, we get these wind circles, and we need all of the players to dodge out of them before they accidentally get hit by it. The boss will now cast either forward half or backward half and face one of the directions. One of the roles can dodge this quite easily, currently the DPS. The other role, though, is going to not be able to dodge it on their current platform. They need to swap to the other one, and that's what the wind tornadoes are for. You need to line up so that you can walk into the wind tornado straight, because once you walk in, you're going to get knocked back, and now the knockback is relative to how you entered the tornado. If you walk straight back in, you get knocked back straight across. Dodge the forward half. Note that walking into a wind tornado gives you a 45-second wind vuln up, meaning that you are not going to be able to take the tornado more than once during the entire fight. Forward half goes off in this case, and dodge both cleaves. Immediately afterwards, the boss will cast Duty's Edge, and this is going to be 4 very hard-hitting line AoEs that should be taken as stacks. Make sure to mitigate this heavily, as this is some of the highest raid-wide damage for the entire fight, alongside Projection of Turmoil. The boss is going to cast Burning Chains, have everybody stacked up, because when this cast finishes, all the tank healers will be chained to all of the DPS. What we need to do to break these chains is whichever role did not just get knocked across by the wind portal, they're now going to be knocked to the other platform. Make sure you enter it straight on so you get knocked correctly, and then make sure you go a little bit out of melee range so that you definitely break your chains before they start to do damage. The boss will cast another Actualize Raid-Wide, and you'll all get flung up into the air as the stage transitions and land down, causing you to drop your cast. This is the most annoying part of the fight, bar none. Next up is another Projection of Triumph, and it will look very similar to the first one. We get the 2 casts, and the AoEs start to go off. This time, though, after the second set of AoEs, the boss is going to cast Half Circuit. You have a glowing sword that the boss is holding to cleave one side of the arena, and you either get the 2 big glowing swords in the middle like this, which signifies that in the hitbox is unsafe, or like this, signifying that out of the hitbox is unsafe. Dodge the 3rd hit of the ground AoEs, and now dodge Half Circuit. This time, we need to be on the west side of the arena and in the hitbox, so all players adjust to be there. Immediately position yourself so that you're safe from the 4th set of AoEs. Continue to dodge AoEs, but try to stay together as a group, because the boss is now going to cast Regicidal Rage, and you want it to make it as easy as possible for your tanks to walk forward, grab both Tank Buster Tethers, and to spread out to their pre-assigned positions. We're now going to get another Projection of Turmoil cast. This is going to be very similar to the first one with a very small difference. Soak this however your group's decided they're going to soak it. Here you're going to see a strategy that involves light parties, but there are many ways to do this. I will likely make a mini guide whenever PF has settled on their best way of doing with this. The boss is going to jump to middle and start casting half full. If you're doing light parties, it's really helpful to have soaked 2 of the light party stacks before we get to this. Dodge the cleave, and then continue popping. You're going to get another half full cast, dodge the cleave, and continue popping. Finally, the boss will jump to south and do one more half-full cleave, dodge the cleave, and wait for the mechanic to finish. You're going to get another Bitter Whirlwind Tank Buster, another Dawn of an Age, and the stage transitions again. We get our 4 platforms mirrored. The boss casts Volok, and it's the same sword patterns we saw before. For the most part, this is exactly as the same as it was at the beginning. The only difference is as soon as this finishes, everybody gets the yellow pyramids and needs to be in their own tile. We get a Duty's Edge. And now from this point onwards, it's all repeated mechanics. Greater Gateway is going to happen, and we get the tethers and the swords, but this is exactly the same as it was before, including with the yellow pyramids at the end. You get another actualized raid-wide to transition the stage back. Another multi-directional divide. This will be the version that includes a forward cleave or a backward cleave. And one more actualize. This serves as the enrage. Thank you for watching. I hope you found this useful.